Good morning. My name is Susan Jagalko, and it's my privilege to serve as your worship associate this month. Last Sunday. Last month, my husband and I hosted a tapestry service auction event at a small Mexican restaurant in our neighborhood. Gustavo Ariana, the young editor of the OC Weekly and author of the nationally syndicated column Ask a Mexican, joined us. And a few weeks later in the OC Weekly, he mentioned our congregation in a very positive way. He has done this before. He called us radical Christians.
We'll work on that.
I emailed him briefly explaining that Unitarian Universalism is not defined solely as Christian, but it includes Christians, humanists, Jews, Buddhists, atheists, agnostics, etc. He immediately emailed back with, "Sorry for my goof up," and then lots of exclamation points. "Ustedes are great. Looking forward to speaking again at Tapestry." I'm amused at my own urgent disclaimer to him of being called Christian, although I didn't mind being called radical. I have to ponder that. He says that he calls us radical because we embrace inclusion and we basically practice what we preach. He says we're authentic. I think of my authentic self sort of like my inner child who guides me into what I like to refer to as the road back to begin, where I remind myself and rediscover who I am. Dr. Brene Brown, a social worker and researcher and the author of New York Times bestseller Daring Greatly, among other books, asks us not to trade our authenticity for safety, to believe we are enough, and to connect. And she describes connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. May all of us know this joy of connection and feeling. Welcome to Tapestry, a Unitarian Universalist congregation, and we ask that you please turn off all mobile devices so together we can create a contemplative atmosphere. We extend warm greetings to everyone. If you feel you have found a spiritual home with us, please talk to with our minister, Reverend Doss, someone at the greeters table, or the membership chair, Amanda Wainwright. We heartily welcome you. And now our talented Dana Freeman should come up to the podium.
Are we lighting the chalice first?
No. I have my secret script, and then you have the order of service. Let's bring up her husband, Bill, too.
Yeah, I did. Do these both work? No, I didn't know we were going to do things twice this morning because we're going to play later, right? Yeah. Okay, well, this is about, I was reading this menu. It says here, stuffed roast pork, pomegranate glazed cod, almond polenta cake, free-flowing wine, soups, appetizers, and all included. And that's going to happen at the musical table, and that's going to be at our house on March 13th. And we're also going to have music, right? So we've been doing this for 13 years, and I was having a really bad day last week, and Reverend Ross sent this email to me.
Reverend Ross says that of all the things I miss from California, her music, and her dinners are on the short list, the very short list. It's almost worth flying out from Houston just for the evening.
So we hope you come to the musical table.
I've been coming for almost those 13 years, and it's to the musical table, and it's awesome. Please check Tapestry's website, our newsletter, or our Tapestry app, which can be downloaded on your smartphone or tablet. Our activities reflect our focus of building community, standing on the side of love, and making a positive difference in the world. This is our intention, and it is definitely our strength. And now Christine Kruger will light our chalice, the central symbol of our Unitarian Universalist heritage. Each morning, we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and give back. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to the community, and to each other. Dag Hammarskjöld. Now please join in saying our covenant, followed by our song of affirmation.
Come into this place that we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and your strengths, with your fears and anxieties, loves and hopes. For here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything than who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, and the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together we make this a holy place. Welcome to Tapestry. Welcome to our time together to be in worship. I'd like to invite you to stand if you're comfortable doing so, to join in singing our opening hymn number 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. When we gather to worship, we take a moment to lift up the sorrows and celebrations in our own lives. I have a few different notes to share with you today. Some have lit candles in silent recognition of a joy or sorrow, and some have written a message to share. This first one, I'm going to need help with the name. I think it's Tawfiq Umar. Okay, Tawfiq Umar was in Santa Ana jail, and he won asylum on Friday. One of our visitors has been visiting him. This is a 20-year-old who's been in custody since August and had no attorney. So congratulations to Tawfiq. Jan Meslin has fortunately written a message that I didn't know quite how to share. She says she's sending love to Unitarian Universalists who were standing on the side of love yesterday in Anaheim as part of a counter-protest to the Ku Klux Klan. One suffered a broken arm and the other was arrested. Those are young adults from the Santa Monica congregation and First Church LA. So we offer our prayers and thoughts for them and for all who are terrorized by racial violence in Anaheim yesterday. There's a short but full story of it in the LA Times if you want to read more. And I think this is from Bonnie, but I'm not certain. Luna, my little chihuahua, is in congestive heart failure. She's only 5.5. I love her dearly. As a congregation of pet lovers, that's heartbreaking. And Penny and Dave Kinnear ask for your caring thoughts for Debbie's sister, Debbie's family, as her brother-in-law is in last stages of struggle for his life. We will definitely do that, Penny and Dave. Would you join me in reading our congregational response for these sorrows and celebrations? For your joys, we join you in celebration. For your sorrows and concerns, may you feel our compassion. For all that is spoken and unspoken, may the caring of our beloved community sustain you. And now I'd like to welcome Marley Chin to tell us a little bit about why he cares so much about this congregation.
Thank you, Reverend Doss. I was asked to speak, and I want to tell you about when I listened to Reverend Kent speak at Tapestry about Rosa Parks and her role in the civil rights movement. I know I'm keeping alive a part of myself that connects with larger issues of society. That is important because I am Asian American, and I would not be here in the United States if it were not for the civil rights movement. Because without it, there would not have been the passage of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, which changed the laws in this country so that instead of being barred from entry, my parents could immigrate here in 1967. The reality of this history resonates with me, yet for Black History Month, I have not even so much as watched a short TV show about the civil rights movement. TV is not part of our day-to-day schedule because my wife and I have 2 kids, and with them, there is not enough time. So to make sure our day-to-day schedule does not block out the important issues of society and community, we schedule time to be part of Tapestry. This congregation makes it possible to connect with important parts of life. Obviously, Tapestry brings into our life the spiritual dimension. Then additionally, and just as important, it brings in that aspect of life that my civil rights movement story speaks to, the social action dimension. Tapestry strengthens my beliefs so that I can make them visible enough so that my children can see and understand these beliefs. Without Tapestry in my life, there would not be the chance for me to attend an impactful workshop last month about race and share that experience with my family. Many here have this experience with Tapestry, how something happens here that amplifies something within us that is very important, but that is hard to make visible alone. That is why my wife, Amy, and I financially support Tapestry with a pledge each year. It keeps alive this strength that comes from doing something together with like-minded people so that our values can be made real and tangible.
We asked Marley to speak today as sort of a kickoff for our pledge campaign that will have its big leap of faith climactic moment on March 20th. So you'll be hearing quite a bit more about giving to Tapestry in the coming weeks. For now, I want to invite some of our young and young at heart to come up front and join me for a little talk on crayons. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Come on up. You want some crayons? So, can you hear me? No. Now? How's that? Ah, there we go. Magic crayons. So, good morning, everyone. I heard that you like crayons, right? Or you wanted some, at least. When I was your age, the most exciting thing about school was probably going back to school and getting shiny, new, fun school supplies. And we got crayons like these that were all like perfectly new and sharp. And they even smell good. Do you guys know like crayons have a very particular smell?
Yeah.
They taste good. Well, I'll leave that up to you. But here's a box of crayons that you guys can smell, and I need a couple of volunteers to take a box for other people, for the adults to pass around and smell. Here you go, Ashlyn. You can just give them and let them pass the box around, maybe to the big section in the middle. And here you can run those back there so they can pass them around and smell them.
Don't eat any.
And don't eat them, please. And here's one more, Henry. You were fast on the draw with a hand. You go way, way to the back. They never get crayons back there. So I brought these because you can learn a lot from a box of crayons. You might have a favorite color of crayon. That's maybe not my favorite color of crayon, but that's okay. That's the way boxes of crayons work. Wouldn't it be a shame if they were all the same color? It wouldn't be a very helpful box of crayons, would it? We need all of the colors in our box of crayons, and some of them even have unfamiliar names like fuchsia or tangerine, and others have pretty plain names like blue or yellow or red. Or red pink or yellow green. There are all sorts of crayon names. Or green yellow. After a while though, you guys are about halfway through the school year, right? So your school supplies are a little dull and maybe crayons are broken and pencils are like half used and the erasers are all eh. Well, the same thing. Your erasers are fine. Well, you're very smart. My eraser would also be broken in 4 pieces. My eraser would not be fine. Even though we think that some crayons in the box are prettier than others and some are weak or broken, all of them are important. That's actually my favorite thing about crayons, that even when they're broken and the wrappers come off, and sometimes you can't even tell what color they really are because they've been all mushed together, they still work. And you never know quite what color it's going to be. And I think people are the same way. When we're kind of tired, maybe a little bit broken, we still have the use that we're meant to be. If we do what? You didn't get to smell them? Can you pass those around? Can we share? Here we go. Crayons for everyone. They're coming, I promise. So each one of us and every person that we know and meet is important. And all of us have to live on the same earth. Just like that little box, there are a whole bunch of people that have to share this place together. Guys, share the crayons, please. And that means we all need to learn to get along and care for one another, and that includes all those different crayons with different names. So I hope you guys enjoy. Actually, you can take that box of crayons to one of the classes, and we'll pick up crayons back there later. And you guys enjoy your class, and we'll see you all in a little bit. Let us join in a short time of silent meditation. Sit back, relax, and let the wisdom of this community be with you. Namaste. Amen and blessed be. I just realized I forgot another celebration. Last week we had the joy of seeing another new baby in our midst. Tatiana is here with Ollie, and we are really thrilled to have you guys back here today. So, I think she might be sleeping. So, whenever the topic of generosity comes up, or whenever we enter a pledge campaign, I usually go in the direction of reminding us that we have enough. We may be a little anxious about our material wealth, but in reality, most of us have enough to thrive as human beings. Not just enough to feed ourselves and clothe ourselves. Most of us have been able to access educational opportunities. Most of us are able to pursue art and hobbies. Most of us get to travel. And we may not do those things at the most expensive or most luxurious levels, but we have more than enough, not just to live, but to really flourish. And when we think about giving, remembering how much we have is a very good place to start. This Sunday, I want to focus not so much on having enough, but on being enough. In a culture of criticism and perfection, thank you, Facebook, with thousands of voices reminding us that someone is better looking, someone is stronger, faster, even kinder and nicer, it can be hard to remember that we are good enough. A lot of this morning's sermon is based on the research and writing of the clinical psychologist named Brene Brown. She spent years researching shame and vulnerability. And she argues that the way that we address our sense of personal shame is the most important factor in our ability to live bravely and to accomplish our dreams. Now, shame is a very taboo topic. No one wants to talk about it. Brene Brown shares this story about after she gave her first TED Talk on the topic. It went viral. It literally had millions of views. And she says shortly thereafter, she got phone calls pouring in from people wanting to invite her to speak. And the message usually went something like this. We heard your TED Talk and we thought it was amazing. We'd really love for you to come speak to our organization. We only have one request, and that's that you not talk about shame or vulnerability. We'd rather hear about innovation, creativity, and change. Of course, the great irony, as she points out, is that those three things, innovation, creativity, and change, all grow out of an ability to be vulnerable, to take a risk, to confront the voices of shame that limit us. And what is church if not a place to bring up uncomfortable subjects? So I want to talk about shame a little bit. There's an important distinction between shame and guilt. Shame is a negative feeling about who you are. Guilt is a negative feeling about something that you've done. And it's a lot more socially acceptable to express feelings of guilt. In fact, we kind of honor that remorse. It's a good thing. It's proof that you have a conscience. When you've done something bad, you feel bad about it. Guilt is feeling bad about what we've done. Shame, though, is feeling bad about who we are. Even though we all experience some degree of shame, some degree of feeling inadequate, those things aren't acceptable to talk about. It's incredibly uncomfortable to say or to hear someone else say, I don't feel smart enough to do this job. I don't feel like I'm attractive enough. I don't think I'm good enough to succeed. I don't feel like I'm strong enough to carry this burden. It's really uncomfortable stuff. But those voices of shame come up in each of our lives over and over again. The image that comes to me is it's like a game of whack-a-mole. Now, I've heard shame referred to as a swampland of a soul, and I want you to ever so briefly visit that swampland just for a moment, just for this sermon. We're not going to say anything about it. I'm not going to ask you to respond in any way. I just want you to identify for a moment how shame organizes itself for you. Not smart enough, not attractive enough, not happy enough, not serious enough, not strong enough, not good enough, not popular enough, not caring enough, not loving enough, not adventurous enough. The list goes on. Think for just a moment of what are the stories of shame that you tell yourself? What are the little voices that hold you back? So, as I mentioned, a lot of this morning's sermon is based on the work of Brene Brown. In a couple of months, it'll be the focus of a discussion in the minister's seminar. She's a New York Times bestselling author and now apparently friends with Oprah. A lot of what she has to say is very touchy-feely, and for lack of a better word, it's very trendy right now. So I wanted to reach back into our Unitarian Universalist history for some foundation of how Unitarians and Universalists have dealt with this issue of shame in our history. Both our Unitarian and our Universalist roots are an attempt to respond to a nagging sense of shame. Both Unitarianism and Universalism developed as an opposition to the theology of predestination. Some of us know what that is. Predestination is the idea that each and every person is destined to heaven or hell before they're even born. Each person is bound for eternal punishment or bliss based on God's discretion, and most of us, I'm sorry to say, are going to the fiery pits because we are bad. I can't think of any more anxiety-producing message to tell people. I can't think of any message that promotes a sense of shame more than this idea. It basically says you're either a good person or a bad person. You're probably a bad person. God made you that way, and you're going to be punished for it forever. In the early 1800s, the Unitarians said, wait a minute. We may not be perfect, but as human beings, we have a capacity for critical thought and for growth and development. It's our responsibility to use the tools that we have to strive toward being better people. It's our job to learn and deepen and grow toward goodness. After all, that's what Jesus encouraged people to do. The Bible is full of examples of how we're each called to develop into our best selves. We aren't perfect, but each one of us has potential for growth and learning. And it's actually that potential that was the foundation for Unitarian social reform movements. They believed, and we believe, that every person deserves the opportunity to flourish into what they can be. And because of that, they opposed slavery and child labor. They fought for public education, women's right to vote, and public services for the disabled. This was the Unitarian mission field, not to save souls through conversion, but to offer human beings the opportunity to grow morally and intellectually into their best selves. Unitarians struggled against the experience of shame by focusing on potential instead of shortcomings. Universalists, though, took a very different approach to moving past shame-based predestination. Universalism originally meant universal salvation, based on his own experience of God and his own sense of shame. George de Benneville was one of the first people to talk about this in America. In the mid-1700s, he came to the conclusion that the God that he knew and loved wouldn't send him to hell. And if he was saved with the way he acted, well, then he was pretty sure that everyone else must be too, because he was no saint. Universalists place their hope less on the worthiness of humans and more on the great love of God. Over the next couple of hundred years, Universalists risked their lives to spread this liberating message in America. Some were circuit riders and great reformers. Finally, in the 19th and 20th centuries, Universalist theology broadened much further than that. It translated a focus on universal salvation into appreciation for the power of love to transform the world. Not just God's love, but everyone's love. And it began to see that religious traditions outside of Christianity contain a seed of truth, and that we are universally on a path toward wholeness and healing. Our predecessors historically rejected the notion of original sin and predestination. Today, we talk about the inherent worth and dignity of every person. It's the first in our list of 7 principles. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Those principles are in the order, well, they used to be in the order of service before we downsized it. They're in the hymnals. They're everywhere throughout our UU congregations. The children even have a children's version of it. And sometimes we say it like it's no big thing. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. If we fully realized that belief, though, not just about other people, but about ourselves, if we fully embraced the inherent worth and dignity of every person, it would be nothing short of a spiritual revolution. Religious traditions point to their ideals. They don't guarantee how we will live in every moment of our lives. And we still strive to let go of shame, to quiet the voices of doubt, so that we can boldly live our dreams. And that's the thrust of Brene Brown's writing. This is why she focuses on shame and vulnerability. She argues that overcoming shame and trying even when failure is likely, that's the bravest thing we can do. Not success, but risking, trying again and again is the true mark of bravery. A famous quote by Theodore Roosevelt speaks beautifully to this sense of shame and true courage. You have probably heard this, but I want to share it. He used these words in Paris, France. He said, "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." Now, this is a really dramatic reminder amid the dust and the sweat and the blood of the failure of daring greatly. It's a dramatic reminder that we are our own greatest critics, and that to achieve anything worthwhile, we must dare to step out of the safe shell of what we know and try to do something worthwhile. Life is about being in the arena. Shame is what tells us we're not good enough to enter, not attractive enough, smart enough, popular enough, strong enough. You may be wondering what all this talk about shame and vulnerability has to do with generosity. I think generosity is an incredibly brave and vulnerable act. It's taking a risk and making an investment in something, whether it's your time or your money or even a kind word or a favor for someone who needs it. Generosity is risking investing a piece of your heart without knowing what the outcome will be. The same is true here at Tapestry. We know that church is not a profitable investment in the traditional sense. Still, you invest loads of time and money into this project. And you're taking a risk and being vulnerable. You're making a statement about your hopes and dreams. You're sharing your heart with the world. You're voting with your dollars. You're saying, this is what I care about. And in our hypercritical world, saying this is what I care about and saying it sincerely takes a whole lot of guts. Generosity grows out of knowing that we are enough and that we have what we have to offer makes a difference in the world. So I want to wrap up this sermon with a short but serious challenge for you. For this week, once or twice, make yourself vulnerable and act bravely. Do something that you aren't certain will succeed. Do something that your internalized voices of shame tell you you aren't enough to do. When those voices of shame crop up, as they most certainly will, step forward and try. Try whatever it is that you're dreaming about. Say what you need to say, give what you need to give, do what your soul wants you to do. Even if the critic within tells you otherwise, even if there's a voice of shame that wants to knock you down, your gifts are worth sharing with the world. Amen. For our offering this week, it will be half of the plate offering will be shared with an organization called CIVIC that stands for Community Initiatives for Visiting Immigrants in Confinement. We do this once every other month. We split half of our plate. CIVIC is a national network of visitation programs, much like our own Friends of Orange County Detainees. This collection will go directly to their direct support fund that gives small grants to people after they're released from detention to get back on our feet, just like the person that we heard about in our Joys and Sorrows. Already, more than $3,000 from this fund has been given to support our own released detainees. This is an opportunity for us to give back to an organization that's been generous with us. So as the ushers come forward, may you be moved to generosity.
We extinguish this flame, knowing the light remains in the warmth and compassion of our hearts until we are together once again.
And would you take the hand of someone near you for these closing words? Here, may you know that you are lovable and that indeed you are loved. And may you carry that love with you into the world as a blessing. Now go in peace and let the light within you be a blessing to the world.